In this edition of Sketch with Liz, I'm sketching this lovely pub in monochrome. It's in the village where I live, and you can find the picture on the community tab for you to have a go. The idea of Sketch with Liz is like it's a virtual global sketch club. So I choose a location, I sketch it live and record it. There will be wobbles, there will be beeping of horns, but it is like you are with me, sat next to me, and we're sketching together. If you have a go, when you share it online, please use the hashtag SketchWithLiz, because then we can all search for that and see how we've interpreted the view, because everyone sees things so differently. I hope you enjoy this edition. It's a glorious summer's day, well, spring day actually, but it's like summer, and I'm outside our local pub in the village where I live. And I want to do this sort of sketch today. These are some I've done recently up in London. I'm sitting outside the church and the road might be a little bit noisy as we come through, but let's hope we'll all be okay. I'm going to start by using these. These are like Tombos. They're dual tip pens, totally water soluble, and they're great for an underdrawing because then it will just melt away. I'm not going to do the whole pub. I'm just going to do the corner of it with the chimneys because I like that. And then just the sort of little archway where you go in. So the angle I'm sitting at isn't the most interesting angle in the world, but it has the massive advantage of shade, and it's a beautiful spring day today, and I think shade trumps angle. So I'm starting with the triangle of the roof. I'm looking at how these angles form, and I'm not worrying about getting rough lines because I know they are going to disappear. I need to make sure the chimney pots actually come in. I think they would just about do, because the chimney pots are part of the nicest bit of this pub. Do that. This is the parasol. So it's good to start with a big shape, which was that triangle, and then work out from there and get things sort of in proportion to that big shape. I think that works quite nicely. We'll just decide how far we're going to go. There's another parasol here on the centre. Yeah, it comes under that chimney. So I'm looking for verticals and horizontals all the time. And then we've got the picket fence here, and we've got pretty baskets and whatevers. I'll move away from these now and grab a permanent pen. Just been brought a drink. Thank you very much to my lovely assistant. Look, there's a drink. It is only lemonade. Big advantage of sketching a pub is, of course, that you can get a drink. So this is also a dual tip marker, but this is a permanent one. So it's got a fine liner at one end and it's got a brush pen at the other, permanent. So let's see how we get on. Sure whether I will only use the fine tip because, well, we'll just have to see what mood I'm in really. So I'm going to start by going not just over my lines, but reinforcing the correct ones. So I'm challenging my lines all the time. It does not matter if any of these are wonky. The joy of doing a really old building is actually that it is totally wonky. So that's fine. Just want to make sure that the angles are plausible. And I want to get those lovely chimneys in. So I'm really observing carefully where the flashings and the chimneys and the angles are. I'm doing them in a continuous line because it's a way of capturing lots of information in a very quick way. It makes your eye flow round the piece. Now, if I was trying to do a really finished drawing, I would do it something totally differently. I would be measuring and making sure I didn't have strange marks and all those things. But this is meant to be an impression of the scene. I do not know what's going to happen. Is the landlord going to come out and say, you can't draw my pub? He won't. Is a tractor going to park in front of me? We've had a few tractors going past loaded with muck. They're really smelly, but maybe they'll stop for their lunch in the pub and park straight in front of me. So we need to get as much information down as possible before, you know, the beer delivery turns up. I can guarantee that happens. So let's get big shapes in. I'm very straight on to the pub, and I would have chosen a more interesting angle under other circumstances. But today, shade was the most important thing, and I'm not willing to suffer for my art. So I don't want sunstroke. Cyclists going past. So it's just a case of making sure you are safe, because equally well, never noticed the hanging baskets either. Let's get those in. Yeah, make sure wherever you've decided to sit is safe, stable, as comfortable as you can be, and just make the most of the view that gives you. So the angles here are, I say, very well, they're not angles, it's all a bit flat and disinteresting, but never mind. Tractor again. Everyone says, come to the countryside, it's so peaceful. They're telling fibs. Oh, that stinks. Shall I put her in? I don't usually put people in my thing, but she's sitting there so conveniently. We'll just have her. Wonder if she's expecting someone to come and join her. Well, it can be nice to put people into your sketches because it just gives context. You know, this is a living part of our community. It gives scale if you're somewhere natural. You don't want it to sort of be a cliche, but it can be really a good thing to put in. I'm going to have to make my mind up what I'm going to do about shadows, because it's a really bright day. As I said, shadows are going to be moving, and they may or may not be important in the end to the composition. So I'm going to sort of leave that to the end and make that decision sort of as I need to. Having put the gate in, I might just put a bit of a view of something going on behind there. There's sort of picnic tables and things. And behind this is the Village Bowls Club, which allegedly is the second oldest in England. It's a rather nice phone line going off there. Now, is that a sundial? I think there is. There are beams. When this was refurbished a couple of years ago, they wanted to paint all the beams black and white to really emphasise them. And they weren't actually allowed to. It's a listed pub. It's actually owned by the church, which is behind me. I think it's really funny the pub is owned by the church. Another hanging basket over here. Window. Let's get this window in. And the window down here, none of them match up. Ooh, there's a door there. So the amazing thing is that the more you look, the more you see. Oh, and someone's just come very handily sat at this table with his pint, looking at his phone. So nice to have another person in my picture. Now let's go back to our water-soluble pens and start bringing this to life, because at the moment this looks pretty pants, doesn't it? Let's get some shade in here. But the moment we start to add tone, it will start to bring it to life. I'm using the brush end of this grey set, and I'm putting in tone, and I am putting in a bit of shadow, a bit of local colour as well, and that will really help bring this to life. I'm starting off with one of the lighter greys because I can always go darker, but going lighter is tricksy. And it's just a super quick way, because we are always looking for speed. So when we are sketching outdoors, it's speed, because like this bloke could finish his pint and go off. someone could come and interrupt us, and we just need to get the information down, because worst comes to the worst, we could go home and sort it out from a photo. Just realised that I haven't got that window in. So very quickly we've been able to map in a few tones. So I think that immediately gives a bit more shape to what we're doing. I know this umbrella looks funny, but it's sort of broken, which I think is funny. Let's put in some of the dark behind the picket, and we can continue it there if needs be. So let me show you the magic of these pens. I've got a big fat water brush, and we can just smoosh it a bit. And luckily it's such a warm day, this will dry really quickly. And it immediately gets rid of the pen mark and gives a far more painterly effect, which is really rather pleasing. So should you have got anything wrong, do not panic, because you can blend this away really easily. So having used one of the lighter tones, we can progress to one of the darker, the next dark, just to develop that. And I want to get some of these beautiful tiles. I think this pub goes back to, I'm going to say certainly the 1700s. It may even be older. I should know that. I will look it up. So we're using a slightly darker one to get a little more form and volume. I'm starting to add in a little more detail. Now I don't like what I've done there with those tiles, and now again I can just smoosh them away, knock them back a bit, and doesn't that look better? I can do broad brushes, I can do more using the tip, and I can develop as I go along. So as we go along, we start just to develop a little more detail, crisp things up a little. So this window is nice and important. We can crisp up some of that. More detailing in this clock face. Some sort of writing from the pub here. That can go there. Given that the picket fence is in front of us, let's put in a bit of detail. There's a sign on the archway which says castle. Unfortunately, the door that's got the main signage is over, out of shot of what I'm doing. But what I can do is maybe write it elsewhere and just copy the sort of style of the signage, which might be quite nice. say that using those markers did make it look a little bit like I'd put bricks on here, so maybe something a little more linear to show that they're clay tiles would be a good idea. Again, not all over because it must have gazillions, but just to sort of indicate a bit of texture. And then it's got wonderful old brick, these chimneys, so were the bits that really caught my eye. And I could totally leave it here if I wanted to, and that would have captured some of the pub. But as I've got time and inclination, I'll carry on adding more and more details of layers. So I might look at this guttering, add that in, this little fixing. I haven't darkened down my doorway yet. Having got that darker mid-tone, let's just see a few bits of really dark, because that will make it pop. Just working out where the darkest shadows are now. Often it's in window panes here. We've got that doorway. It's quite dark. There's some dark here. Got to remember where the shadows are and where the light's coming from, but not get too worked up about that. Here comes the tractor again. And these pens actually layer as well, so if you just want to put it a little bit darker, you can overlayer them as well as use them neat. This brush pen is a little like trying to paint with a pastry brush. We'll have to check whether I've got something a little less clunky. But when you're out and about sketching, well, you have to just improvise, don't you? Because you haven't got all your equipment that you would have at home, and improvisation is no bad thing. So maybe I can use the edge of that. If I pick up some of the ink, that might be quite a nice mark, and actually paint a bit more of the tiles with that. So even though I'm not very keen on this as a brush, that might be okay. Just going to smoosh here. I think we're almost done, or as far as I feel like doing today. What I would like to do, there is a tree just to the right that is sort of out of my shot, but compositionally, I think if I move it inwards here, it would do us some favours. That tree might not be a bad thing. So again, just smooshing that down a bit. Because this is a country pub, there's nothing I can put behind because the sky is just blue. It's beautifully blue. Nothing I can put behind. But that will close that end off. I've got the perspective totally wrong on this arch. I couldn't see it because the car's there. There is a car here blocking the view, and usually I wouldn't. That's wet, so that won't go. Usually I don't put cars in. Usually they are the curse of any urban sketcher. But I quite like this car. Now you can see that it's covering the end of that archway, and that might worry you. Well, I'll just do it over the top, and it looks a bit funny. That's fine, but the way humans' eyes work, on the whole, we tend to look for the lines that we know are there. So we will see the car rather than what we can see sort of behind it. Steering wheel. Let's just get that wheel arch in there. I hope that's in shot. The problem when you're filming outside is that that was the tractor beeping away. I do know the farmer. One bit that is really annoying me is up here. That is the shadow, and I think it is quite hard to read it as a shadow. I can't darken it, lift it. By darkening elsewhere, I will distract the eye from it. So the very last thing I want to do, because I can't fit the sign in, is sort of copy the... Well, I don't think I'd have ever got a job as a pub sign writer, would I? And I hope that gave you an idea of how to capture the scene in front of you in monochrome using very few bits of equipment. Cheers.